"Can you get coffee?" was how it started that morning. The same way most mornings started, with Chad Donnelly shouting across the lobby like I was a damn vending machine in a skirt. And just like that, every fresh MBA intern with a Patagonia vest and a minor in condescension would snicker and go back to pretending their slide decks weren't plagiarized from Medium articles. I stood up anyway, smoothed my cardigan, and walked to the kitchen like I didn't want to burn the whole place to the ground. That's what they don't teach in HR onboarding, how to swallow disrespect so cleanly it looks like professionalism. I've been here longer than the espresso machine they worship, but to Chad, I was still just staff. I wasn't always this quiet. Back when this company fit in one room and the founders still thought compression logic was a type of laundry cycle, I had a voice. I used to code after hours, sketch machine learning frameworks on napkins, and troubleshoot prototype malfunctions while some of the men now wearing key cards were still Googling how to compile. But somewhere between Series B and Chad's smug promotion, I became invisible. Not fired. Just absorbed. People don't notice the doormat after they've stepped on it enough times. He smirked that morning. Same way he always did. "Extra oat milk this time, Clara. My stomach's not a fan of dairy lately." I could have told him what his stomach shouldn't be a fan of was his personality, but I nodded and walked off. Again, I watched my reflection in the microwave door as the machine groaned. Same tired curls, same Clara badge, same fake smile. Yet here's what they don't know. I don't just fetch coffee. I sign off on every NDA. I'm the gatekeeper to every secure visitor entry, every hard copy brief, every internal deck they discard in the recycling bin like no one reads it. I read it. I read everything, including the original patent filings I submitted under my name when this place didn't have a legal department yet. They told me back then, just draft it up. Legal will clean it later. Legal never did. I did. Through my LLC, clean, copyrighted, indexed, time-stamped. Mine, and I kept doing it. 46 times. By the way, if you've made it this far, it would honestly mean the world if you hit the like button and subscribed. I know 97% of folks listening don't, but it really helps the team keep bringing you stories like this. Just a quick tap. It motivates more than you know. Now, back to it. So when the news came down that we were exploring acquisition with some bloated tech giant, no one looked at me. Chad barked for lunch orders. The founder posted a cringy LinkedIn humble brag. The junior engineers started whispering about bonuses. And me? I prepped the conference rooms, sure. Printed the briefings, labeled the bottles, checked the damn light bulbs. But I also opened a dusty file on my desktop, Mitchell Law IP reversion.docx, and set a tiny digital post-it to pop up 3 days from now. Trigger clause upon diligence, it read, because coffee goes cold, but contracts, they age like wine. The email went out on a Tuesday at 7:03 a.m., subject line, exciting next chapter. Chad had attached a pixelated JPEG of champagne flutes and written 3 full paragraphs about how our nimble innovation had attracted major league attention from a top-tier tech conglomerate. Everyone started buzzing like a damn bee farm, execs pacing around with Bluetooth headsets, engineers whispering IPO numbers like they'd already bought Teslas in their heads. No one noticed I was in early that morning. No one noticed I was always in early. Chad strutted out of the glass box he called an office, tossed a manila folder on my desk, and didn't even look me in the eye. Print 6 copies, double-sided color tab dividers. Oh, and book the big room for Thursday. Need it pre-staged by 8 a.m. Don't screw it up this time, Clara. Then he walked off, already pulling some poor intern into his cloud of Axe body spray and ego. I opened the folder. Internal strategy briefings, fiscal summaries, technical architecture diagrams. Most of it cribbed from old files I'd archived months ago, then quietly updated when the kids with job titles like AI evangelist forgot to save version history. Funny thing about people who assume you're stupid, they don't realize they're giving you the ammo. That morning, as I fed the printer 32-pound mat stock and punched holes like my life depended on it, I watched them arrive. The buyer's team. 5 of them, decked out in sleek black suits and the kind of glasses that say, "We just flew in from somewhere important." They walked right past me. Not a nod, not a smile, not even a blink. I could have been a coat rack. I held the door open anyway. It's what we do. We smile through the erasure. By noon, Chad was holed up with them in the glass room, waving his arms like he invented oxygen. I kept refilling the sparkling water and wiping down surfaces between meetings. I could hear bits of their questions through the frosted panels, terms like attribution architecture, compression lineage, licensor constraints. I recognized all of it. I wrote most of it. But to them, I was still just the one who forgot to refill the LaCroix. No problem. When I returned to my desk, I opened my email and typed one line to myself. Subject. Reminder. Body. Trigger IP clause upon diligence. I hit send. A ping sounded. Clean digital breadcrumb. Funny how a single clause, filed years ago, buried in a backdated agreement, can sit there dormant like a fuse, waiting, watching, just like I had been. That night, as the office emptied out and the glow of Chad's glass office dimmed, I stayed behind. Refilled the printer tray, organized the presentation clicker. Then I reopened that Word document from part 1, scrolled to the clause at the bottom, read it once, read it twice. In the event of acquisition, all rights revert to Clara Mitchell, primary inventor and retained licensor, should attribution be omitted or employment status changed prior to contract finalization. Still there, still signed, still mine. The first time I explained entropy-based compression to the founder, he blinked twice, nodded slowly, and said, "Okay, but will it look good in a pitch deck?" That was 7 years ago. We were still in a crumbling WeWork, sharing Wi-Fi with a doggy daycare and a CBD startup that played whale noises in the hall. He had vision, I'll give him that. But he thought neural networks were literally brain cells on a graph. I was brought on as a temp. That's what the invoice said. Temporary contractor, admin adjacent. But I knew what they were building, or trying to build. Their prototype ran like a lawnmower full of pudding. The logic was bloated, the inference layers were stitched together like a toddler's blanket, and the compression model? Let's just say if you uploaded a cat photo, you got back a soup of static and regret, so I stayed late. Sketched out cleaner logic on the back of scrap code printouts, ran optimization tests on my old ThinkPad in the break room while waiting for security to do their midnight sweep. No one asked me to. No one thanked me either. But after the 5th time the founder looked at me with that deer in the pitch meeting look, I offered him a deal. "I'll write you a core structure," I said. "Under my LLC, you can license it. No charge for now, but I retain authorship and ownership." He blinked again, this time faster. "Wait, you have an LLC?" "Yeah, I had an LLC, Mitchell Core Systems, registered 2 years prior. Quiet little entity, just in case someone underestimated me hard enough." I slid him the papers. He signed. Over the next 18 months, I wrote the spine of the entire compression engine. Bitrate optimization, error-tolerant storage paths, recursive chunking, all mine. Each module attributed properly. Each line time-stamped. Patent drafts saved, cross-referenced, filed one by one, 46 in total, each one under my name, not the company's. Every time someone said, "Great job, dev team," I smiled and updated the ledger. Every time they posted a product update on LinkedIn without a whisper of credit, I opened my patent management portal and clicked continue. I wasn't chasing applause, I was building armor. When the Series A term sheets came around, the CFO offered me stock options. Big smile, lots of talk about upside. I declined. "I'd prefer a licensing clause," I told him. "Ongoing, renewable, attribution required, reversion upon sale or termination." He didn't understand half the words, but legal shrugged and stapled it to the back of my temp agreement. No one noticed. No one ever does when you're a ghost in a filing cabinet. I watched a dozen fresh-faced engineers cycle through. Watched the founder start dressing like he'd founded Apple. Watched Chad climb the ladder on buzzwords and borrowed decks. I watched it all and filed everything. Because what's more powerful than being seen? Being documented. The week the suits came back, Chad swaggered through the hallway like he'd already cashed the check. He started doing this thing, adjusting his collar in every reflective surface like he was about to be interviewed by Forbes. The interns followed him around like ducklings, carrying binders they didn't understand, and laughing a little too hard at his half-jokes. One afternoon, he passed my desk, clapped a hand on it like it was a jukebox, and grinned. "No need for you in the prep meetings, Clara. We're talking IP, not admin logistics." I didn't blink, just clicked my mouse and smiled. Of course, Chad. Inside, my blood curdled. Not because I was surprised, because the fool said it loud enough for the junior counsel from the buyer's side to hear. And that kid? He looked concerned. Not enough to say something, but enough to make a note. I'd seen that look before. Paperwork panic. They'd just realized the crown jewel was built on sand, and no one brought a shovel. Behind the scenes, the dance had begun. The buyer's legal team sent over the standard diligence packet. Ownership claims, IP chain of custody, contributor logs. They wanted names, version histories, signatures, attribution breakdowns. All the things we should have had buttoned up if we weren't a frat house pretending to be a tech firm. Chad, of course, didn't flinch. He printed off some out-of-date org charts, scribbled internal dev team across a few architecture maps, and called it a day. When the head of buyer council asked point blank for patent records, he actually shrugged and said, "It's all ours. We built it in-house, nothing external." I was in the break room, pretending to microwave oatmeal while he said it. He didn't even check if I was listening. Later that evening, as I cleared out coffee cups the interns had abandoned like toddlers in a daycare, my phone buzzed. Private inbox, USPTO, subject line, portfolio inquiry detected. I stared at the screen. It had begun. Some poor junior analyst on the buyer's side had entered one of my patent numbers into their diligence database and triggered the notification system I'd set up 3 years ago. Every time a third party searched my portfolio or reviewed licensor metadata, I got a ping. I sat down at my desk. Quiet office, dim lights, just the hum of air vents and the distant echo of Chad's laughter 2 rooms over, probably telling them how tight our IP pipeline was. I opened my files. 46 patents, all clean, each one with attribution lines that read, Inventor, Clara Mitchell. Owner, Mitchell Core Systems. LLC licensor of record, Clara Mitchell, active. I didn't smile. I didn't rage. I just exhaled. They were finally looking. And when they got past the PowerPoint theater and frat boy confidence, they'd find me. All over everything. Like a ghost. A ghost with receipts. They paused the meetings. That's how it started. The buyer's legal team had been nodding along all week, sipping overpriced cold brew, letting Chad run his mouth like he was the second coming of Jobs. But when they asked for a full breakdown of the machine learning compression stack and Chad handed over a 3-page summary with half the words spelled wrong and 0 attribution, something shifted. They didn't argue. They didn't even frown. They just said, "We'll circle back," and disappeared into the war room. That afternoon, the office was quieter than usual. No one said why the meetings had stopped. Chad kept pacing in his office, phone glued to his ear, trying to sound calm while sweat stained through his Armani knockoff. I kept my routine. Refilled the lobby candy jar, restocked toner, filed mail like I wasn't being searched in a database 1,000 miles away. Then the elevator dinged. The lead buyer counsel returned early. He wasn't smiling. Walked right past Chad's outstretched hand, straight to the glass meeting room, and asked a single question loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Who is Clara Mitchell?" The silence hit harder than a car crash. Chad actually turned around like he was expecting to see a different Clara Mitchell standing behind him. When he realized I hadn't vanished into mist, he gave the dumbest laugh I've ever heard. "Oh, Clara? That's just clerical. Admin staff. We've got her on reception." Counsel didn't even blink. He opened a folder, slid a printout across the table, and tapped his pen. "This is a list of 46 registered patents," he said, "filed over 6 years, all related to compression architecture, all tagged to Mitchell Core Systems, which she owns, and which licenses your core algorithm, not the company, not you, her." Chad's face went white like he'd seen a ghost crawl out of his CRM dashboard. "That can't be right," he stammered. She's not engineering. She answers phones." "Apparently," counsel replied, "she also owns your engine." I didn't move. I didn't speak. Just stood there, silently watching from the edge of the hallway as the walls began to fold in on Chad. For years, I'd lived beneath his smirks and sideways comments. "Can you run copies? Are you even technical? You're sweet, Clara, but stay in your lane." Turns out, the lane led straight to his coffin. In that moment, I felt it. Not joy, not revenge, just power. Cool, quiet, undeniable. I was no longer invisible. I didn't need to say anything. The paper said it for me. The engine was mine, always had been. They just finally bothered to read the footnotes. They summoned me like a problem to be fixed. I got the email at 7:19 a.m., subject line, urgent, attribution clarification. The kind of tone that says we thought you were a paperweight, turns out you're a legal bomb. They didn't ask. They didn't say please. Just be in conference room A in 10. I took my time. The air in the hallway was thick, like everyone suddenly remembered I existed and didn't know how to look me in the eye. Chad was already inside when I arrived, face flushed, collar damp, mumbling legal terms he clearly didn't understand. The founder sat stiffly in the corner like a kid waiting for the principal. And then there were the buyers, stone-faced and done with the theater. I walked in holding one manila folder. Sat down, no notes, no laptop, just the folder. The buyer's lead counsel cleared his throat. Ms. Mitchell, we're trying to reconcile a discrepancy. Your name appears on all core IP, yet you're not listed in any cap table or executive filing. I didn't respond right away. Just opened the folder, pulled out the document, and placed it in the center of the table like I was sliding a chess piece. This is my licensing agreement, I said. It grants the company non-exclusive rights to use the compression models developed under Mitchell Core Systems. Rights are contingent on attribution and my continued employment. Clause 6.3 outlines reversion triggers, including exclusion from acknowledgement in material events, like, say, an acquisition. No one moved. The only sound was Chad's ridiculous swallow, loud, panicked, almost cartoonish. Buyer counsel read it once, then again slower. His eyes stopped mid-page. Clause 7, he said, names you as sole licensor. Yes, I replied. And this clause, he pointed again, means if you are terminated or not credited, the company loses rights to all 46 patents? Correct. The founder inhaled sharply. Chad started to speak, but buyer counsel cut him off with a glare that could have stopped a train. This entire deal, he said flatly, rests on her terms. I leaned back. No gloating, no revenge grin, just posture. I'd been treated like furniture for 7 years, so I made sure to sit like mahogany. Solid, unmoving, worth more than they thought. They scrambled, offered to revise, apologize, clarify. I let them. What I didn't tell them yet was that I'd anticipated this, that I'd drafted the licensing clause with 3 independent attorneys, updated it annually, and filed confirmation letters with every USPTO submission. I'd even paid for a third-party audit of the IP ownership trail 2 months ago, just in case. Because when people treat you like a fixture, they assume you'll never move. But fixtures can hold buildings together, or they can crack the foundation. In the chaos, no one asked how long I'd planned it. No one asked why I'd never said a word. And honestly, I wouldn't have answered. Ice in the veins. No need for heat when the paper already burns. Chad cracked. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, glorious unraveling. First came the frantic denial, then the raised voice, then the sheer desperation leaking out of every pore like a bad cologne. I was walking back to my desk when I heard him bark across the hallway. She stole that code. She was admin staff. She took notes. She didn't invent anything. Half the floor froze. Even the intern who never looked up from his dual monitors glanced over. The buyer's counsel didn't flinch. Neither did ours. They'd already done the audit. They'd reviewed the timestamps, the authorship logs, the LLC filings, and the chain of custody for every submission. My name was everywhere, his wasn't. She's the only valid inventor of record, the buyer's counsel said, as flatly as if reading off a parking ticket. Chad's mouth moved, but no words came out. In the silence that followed, I walked past the glass wall of the conference room and made brief eye contact with the CEO. He looked like a man watching the plane go down with his entire retirement portfolio on board. A few minutes later, he stepped out, approached me gently, no smugness, no pretense, and said the one sentence I never expected to hear from his mouth. Clara, could we discuss new terms for the license? I didn't blink. Of course. We met in the small boardroom. No suits this time, just me, the CEO, and the echoes of panic from the other room. I slid over a new copy of the license agreement. Clean, updated, merciless. Terms: 2.4% royalty on all use, retroactive to the first commercial release. Formal title, Chief Patent Officer. $437,000 in back pay based on consultant equivalent market rates over 7 years. Equity vesting at 1.5% in the acquiring entity, locked at closing. The CEO looked up at me after the third page. His hands were trembling slightly, but he didn't argue. We'll get it signed. I nodded once and left him there to process it. On the way back to my desk, I stopped by Chad's office. He wasn't inside, probably off somewhere trying to make a lawyer believe in magic. His door was half open, lights still on, that dumb motivational poster about hustle staring back like it had any clue what work really was. I pulled a sticky note from my bag, wrote 3 words in neat block letters. No flourish, no threat. Just a warning he should have read years ago. Check attribution before disrespect. I placed it dead center on his door, walked away. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt done, like the weight wasn't mine anymore. For years, they fed on my silence like it was permission. But silence isn't surrender. It's storage. And eventually, it spills over. With receipts. Let the next woman behind the front desk know documentation is armor. Attribution is leverage. And people like Chad, they never see it coming until their name's not on the engine, and yours is engraved in every line. They moved forward, but on my terms. The acquisition that once had Chad chest-thumping through every corridor was now a quieter affair, negotiated behind closed doors where my name was printed in bold. Every document that crossed the table had a new column, Mitchell license clauses, required compliance. The buyers didn't question a single item. They knew what was at stake. They'd seen the patents, the filings, the chain of ownership lined with my signature. They weren't just buying a company anymore, they were licensing me. Final agreement? Done. All 46 patents still mine. The compression engine, the licensing terms, the attribution clauses, preserved. The clause that once sat quietly at the bottom of a forgotten document was now front and center, the spine of a $210 million transaction. The founder didn't say much at the signing, just avoided eye contact like a dog that knows it chewed the wrong furniture. I let him squirm. He got his exit, but he'd always know who enabled it. As for Chad, he showed up late to the final review meeting, sleeves wrinkled, voice smaller. HR handed him a new title in a stiff envelope, Director of Client Onboarding. I don't think he understood what it meant until he logged into the internal portal and saw my name, Chief Patent Officer, 3 levels above his. I was already removed from org chart permissions, which meant I'd be reviewing any future tools tied to my logic. He passed me in the hallway and didn't say a word. I didn't either. No smirk, no satisfaction, just stillness. A reminder that real power doesn't need an announcement. It already has a desk nameplate. The buyers called me into a separate meeting that afternoon. No Chad, no founder. Just 3 of their lead innovation officers and the head of R&D. They asked about my roadmap. I outlined the next-gen iteration of the compression framework, 3 steps ahead of where the company had dared to dream. Midway through my explanation, one of them leaned forward and asked something no one at my own firm had ever thought to say. Would you consider joining our innovation board? I paused for half a second, then smiled. Yes. They handed me a packet, stock, title, voting rights. They didn't need to convince me. They'd already done the one thing that mattered. They saw me. Later that evening, I stood by the window in the executive wing, my new badge still clipped to my belt, my nameplate already mounted on the door. Outside, interns loaded boxes into Ubers, and the old logo was being pried off the wall. A janitor wheeled past, nodded at me like I belonged there, and I did. Not because someone gave me permission, because I documented my worth and waited until they needed it more than they feared it. That's how real change happens. Quiet, permanent, and with your name in every footer. The new site launched on a Thursday. Sleek, minimal, all lowercase headlines and clean gradient buttons like every other tech firm pretending to reinvent gravity. But buried down at the bottom, smaller than the copyright notice just above the privacy policy, was the line that mattered. Core IP, Mitchell Compression, Protocol Series 1.46, no team attribution, no vague collective effort. Just the truth, in font size, 9, my name, my work, my terms. I didn't celebrate, didn't pop champagne or post a humble brag on LinkedIn. I just stared at the screen for a moment, then closed the tab. That was enough. Because I knew that for every VC who skimmed the site, for every engineer reviewing documentation, for every analyst crawling through back-end specs, that line would linger. Mitchell, compression, 46 patents. They'd have to whisper it in meetings now. Cite it in decks. Explain it in future mergers. I didn't just leave a watermark. I left a wall, and they'd either build with it or bounce off of it trying. I moved offices the following week. New building, different floor, no more open bullpens or glass boxes for Chad to bark through. My new space was quiet, clean, window view, door that locked. Title on the plate, Chief Patent Officer. Just below it, the logo of the parent company. They got the engine. I got the control panel. They didn't ask me to give a speech. No press release. That was fine. I wasn't there for applause. I was there for authorship. And now I had it. One afternoon, while I was reviewing a proposed tweak to the compression stack, a junior engineer, bright-eyed, nervous, knocked on my open door. Ms. Mitchell? Clara's fine. He shuffled in, holding a printout of one of the protocols I'd written 5 years ago. I was wondering, how did you pull that off? Like, all of this? How'd you manage it? I looked at him for a long moment. Not out of pride, out of memory, of how long it took for someone to ask that question with anything other than suspicion. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands, and gave him the real answer. I file things early, I said, especially people's assumptions. He blinked, then smiled. I nodded toward the stack of patent folders on the corner of my desk. Grab one, read. Learn the shape of the loophole before someone tries to shove you through it. He did. He left. I turned back to my monitor. In the silence that followed, I let myself feel it. Not victory, not revenge, just weightlessness. They underestimated me for years. And now their entire company runs on the very thing they ignored. And all I had to do was keep the receipts.